Welcome to another victory recap of the Giant Take podcast. A victory for the Giants over the Jacksonville Jaguars. I would say the closest ending possible we've had all season. All of the wins have really been close. I'm not going to lie. But this one, it took inches for the Giants to get the victory today. My name is Josh, and I am joined by my friend and co-host Alex. I hate coming up with excuses already for the two of us within the first minute of the podcast. But I do have to do so. So if you can tell from my audio, that's so echoey right now. I'm in the business center of a hotel. And that's so I'm away. I'm not home. And also I have a sore throat, which is such a great thing to have when you are a podcaster. And my friend and co-host Alex is sick. So it's just a dynamic duo of awfulness at the current moment. So this recap might not be as long as your normal because we both suck. And that's all I have to say on that. Alex, besides sick, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm going to try to be upbeat for the 20 minutes or so or however long we end up recording for. This Giants win, man, it was big. I wasn't yelling and screaming because I couldn't physically yell and scream. And I also knew I was going to probably have to record this later, so probably not a great idea to yell and scream. But on that final drive, I was sure as hell very, very nervous. But huge win for the Giants. Obviously, the scoreline makes it seem not as close as it actually was. Obviously, a yard away, really, from the game going in the Jaguars' favor. And, it was just a really tight one. A whole bunch of significant injuries. I say a whole bunch, really 3 significant injuries and 3 injuries in total, but all of them being significant. And, Daniel Jones playing well again, showing poise, confidence, and really getting it done. Another game-winning drive. And then some of the other supporting cast players, Darius Slayton, Fabian Moreau on defense, some of those guys who have kind of been a little bit off the grid, you can say, for the Giants in the beginning of the season, really stepping up in this one to, get a victory. And that was the really important thing. And the Giants are 6-1. That's the crazy thing. 6-1. Could you believe that the Giants were 6-1? If someone told me the Giants were 6-1 are going to be 6-1 after 7 weeks, I would have told you you're insane. But they're not insane. The Giants are 6-1. It's crazy. One of the best teams in the NFL.
I just want to say, Alex, ESPN does throughout the game have their percentage chance of the team that wins. This might have been one of the biggest jumps ever in that standard, or in that statistics. Maybe the Bills-Chiefs game of last year in the playoffs might have been bigger, but at one point, the Giants had a 98.5% chance to win the game when there was over 20 seconds left, and it was an incomplete pass by Trevor Lawrence on a second down. That was when it was 98.5% chance to win. That number went down to 55.5 within 2 plays. Went from 98% to 55.5. So that's how close this game really was. And you all know watching 3 consecutive flags against the Giants defense, which Wink Martindale was visibly upset about on the sideline. And it's something that the defense has to clean up. While there was also a very, very generous call towards Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars with that roughing the passer. That's definitely one that's a little softer. But the other 2 are kind of inexcusable. It was illegal hands to the face. Maybe one of them was, and then the holding. Alex, you're talking. You're muted on the StreamYard. But
see, I told you my brain's not working, Josh. I'm sorry. I'm talking now, and now I'm gonna have to mute that out from the Audacity. It's a whole big thing. I'm just talking to myself now. But what I was saying is that the hands to the face one for Dane Belton wasn't really a hands to the face. I thought they kind of got bailed out with that one. And the roughing the passer as well, like you said, was generous. But then you saw the Grady Jarrett one a couple weeks back, or maybe that was even last week. You saw a couple other ones. So it's not surprising that they're calling roughing the passer like that now after we've seen those, but still is frustrating when it's going against your own team.
Yeah, and it's tough. And we will get to the positives and negatives that we saw out of this game. I don't know which order you want to go for. I know last week we kind of did the positives and negatives, and then we went like the offense to defense. If you kind of want to just jump around, I'd like to start with Daniel Jones because you mentioned him already earlier. Another consistent game for DJ. Went 19 for 30 with 202 yards and a touchdown. Passing the ball, rushing the ball, once again making an impact, yet still does not know how to slide, and it scares the absolute living crap out of me every single time that man goes, rushing the ball past the line of scrimmage. Although he was very successful at it today with 11 carries for 170 yards, which is almost 10 yards to carry. Also had that rushing touchdown where he just hopped into the end zone after the Jaguars had those 3 consecutive defensive penalties that just kept inching us closer to the end zone. But Jones, very productive today. I really, the only thing I have to say is rushing the ball. Slide, please. That's all I ask. I mean, the guy had multiple neck injuries last year, Alex. He even got surgery on his neck, but he said that was non-injury football related wise from last year. But whatever it is, I don't want him to have to get another one. So there was that one collision today. I think you know what I'm talking about, where he gained 8 yards. Yeah. He went for an awkward slide, and it could have been a debatable helmet to helmet. But the thing is, he wasn't in the position yet on the ground to where you could call that. It scares me as a quarterback. I don't know if he doesn't know how to slide, or he's just kind of being that Giants rough and tough guy fighting for every single yard, which you love to see, but it's also your most prized position. You have to make sure the guy stays healthy. That's it. And then maybe, I don't even think, were there a couple of throws here and there that you were like, where is he throwing that today?
Not really. I think there was maybe a couple times where it was like, oh, that guy looks kind of open. He could have thrown it there. There was 1 or 2 kind of questionable throws into like double coverage at times. Obviously, there was the interception on that roughing the passer call. So, yes, it wasn't like a perfect game by any means, but it was still, a very good game, I think, for Daniel Jones. He even had that kind of like frustrating moment when Marcus Johnson on 4th down in the red zone had that drop. And then he kind of starts like yelling, catch the ball. Like you can see it with his lips. And it's kind of funny how that all, panned out, I guess, because Daniel Jones always seems to be like this calm guy who doesn't really like yell. He's like just whispers the whole time. And then you see him like screaming at the top of his lungs, like catch the ball. Of course, I can't do that. But, I thought that was kind of funny. I would say there's a lot of Giants fans who are really jumping the gun. Daniel Jones is the future. He's the quarterback of the future, right? We're winning a lot of these games. I wouldn't say because of him. I also wouldn't say in spite of him, but I still am not completely sold yet. If it's also about consistency, right? Yes, he's done it for a few games in a row now in the beginning of the season. Can he continue that through the rest of the season where he's continuously, putting in good shifts, where he's continuously putting this team on his back and not making crucial mistakes or, not finding the right read at times? I think that's where his progression, and his growth as a quarterback is really going to be seen the most, is down the stretch here for the Giants. I wouldn't be handing him a blank check yet, as some Giants fans seem to already be doing.
And Alex, you mentioned the soft-spokenness of Daniel Jones. The Giants posted out that Let's Go DJ kind of social media clip of him breaking down the guys at the end of the game or after the game in the locker room. And everyone's like, speech, speech, speech. He gives the shortest speech, I swear, of all time.
He's literally the most awkward person ever. It's
so
ridiculous.
Funny. Everyone's like, speech, speech, speech. And he's like, all right, hard-fought game out there. Giants on 3. 1, 2. The least amount of speaking possible for Daniel Jones. but yeah, it is pretty funny that that you had that lip syncing, I guess, or just kind of lip reading clip of him saying catch a damn ball. All right, so let's stick with the offense. I like doing this kind of organization process we've been doing the past couple of weeks. Let's go from that quarterback position to the running back position. Talk about Saquon Barkley. Today, the stat sheet towards the first half of the game was like, I feel like, and this has been consistent though, it's like he's getting a lot of touches, but then it's just the yards aren't carrying out to what we've been seeing. So he was at like 15 carries for 64 yards. And you're like, all right, a pretty good day for Saquon Barkley. At the end of the day, it looks pretty good on the stat sheet as he cracks over 100 yards rushing. Really towards that fourth quarter, he was breaking out, getting those long rushes that we know from Saquon Barkley. Obviously, there was the one play where he went for about 18, I want to say.
Yeah.
And he completely shifted with the Saquon Barkley we're known to seeing, where he originally goes right and immediately after Daniel Jones is behind, under center, hands it off to Saquon Barkley on his right side. there's someone immediately in the backfield on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Quick cut to the left, and then he keeps on going on that right side. Quick cut to the left again, and then goes from right to left up the field for 18 yards. So that's a play that I remember. Anyway, 24 carries, 110 yards, about 5 yards per carry. Rushing in the receiving game, as we know, Saquon Barkley leading the NFL. I want to say still in scrimmage yards. I don't know about after today. We'll see. He had 4 catches for 25 yards, just about 6 yards per catch. So another very solid day for the Giants starting running back.
Thank you for saving this one for me. Darius Slayton is back. My main man, I've been defending him with all my heart, with all my might. I've been standing up for this guy through thick and thin. Darius Slayton, big touchdown, 32-yard touchdown catch. And then obviously a couple other key receptions for Darius Slayton. And you saw what that man could do. His deep threat, his speed, his burst off the line. And obviously came out with that first Giants touchdown, which really set the tone today. So happy for Darius Slayton. He was not the leading receiver in terms of receptions, though. That goes to Wan'Dale Robinson, who had 6 receptions for 50 yards. Also looked quite explosive today. I think the Giants are just going to get him more and more involved this season. I think with Slayton, with Robinson, not so much with Marcus Johnson, it seemed, after this one. You've definitely got a nice couple of pieces there, but the Giants are definitely just missing that wide receiving piece, whether that be, your kind of number one traditional guy. And I think that's really what the Giants are missing. Someone who can play across from Darius Slayton on the outside, and obviously with Wan'Dale Robinson, in the slot. So I think that's something this offense is going to need. Hopefully, if you even consider him this anymore, Kenny Golladay comes back as that guy who can play across from Darius Slayton. I know I'm laughing about it because that's how it feels, almost silly saying that. Or someone like Kadarius Toney, hopefully coming back soon, because Daniel Jones definitely could use the weapons. Because right now it seems like he's really only got 2 options, and one of his options in the passing game actually went out with quite a brutal injury. The tight end Daniel Bellinger, he went out with that eye injury. Josh, do you have any updates about that? I know he was taken to the local hospital. Could be quite severe. We don't really know. I don't know. I'm asking you for updates when we already know that there are no updates. But yeah, it looks like he could be in a not great place. It looked like Devin Lloyd, I believe it was, kind of poked him in the eye, and he was bleeding. He had to get carted off. He was taken to the hospital. He was back with the team after, so hopefully he will be okay. But certainly a brutal injury, and another guy that's kind of been Daniel Jones's go-to guy, who might be out for a few weeks, if not longer. It did not look very good for Daniel Bellinger.
Well, after they fly back to New York tomorrow, I know the update is that I'll see I hope I'm pronouncing this doctor right, ophthalmologist, right? Isn't that what it is, the eye doctor?
I don't know. I'm not an eye doctor person.
I think it's ophthalmologist in New York he's going to see tomorrow when they come back. But besides that, also Brian Dable in his post-game press conference said literally, quote, looks terrible when talking about Daniel Bellinger's eye. So it looked like, he literally got punched right in the eye. A scary scene. Hopefully he'll be okay. I hope for the best for Daniel Bellinger, because otherwise it's going to be Tanner Hudson, which, no offense to Tanner Hudson, it's just he's not a starting number 1 tight end material. Alex, let's go back to Wan'Dale Robinson. I just like to say the snap count tremendously increased for this week. This week from last week. He had 23%, I want to say, last week.
Yeah, 23% last week, yeah.
Yeah, something around that range. Today, I mean, we don't have the numbers yet. We'll have it, I'm sure, by next episode, the preview. But from right now, I have to think it's over 50.
I would guess in the 60s or low 70s, yeah.
So it seems like Wan'Dale Robinson is back to fully healthy. I don't want to, jinx anything, but that's what it seems like to this point. And that's what I have to say for him. Continuing on the offensive side of things, Alex, should we talk about the other injury that the Giants sustained, or the other couple injuries the Giants sustained on the offensive side of things? Well, I don't know. Are we talking about Adoree Jackson or Who
I
else?
mean, Adoree Jackson came back into the game. He was
Yeah.
being evaluated for concussion, didn't end up going out, wasn't ruled out for that, came back into the game. So we're not going to talk about him. It sounds like he's okay, hopefully. But Evan Neal went out with that knee injury. He was initially able to walk off on his own power, then was carted to the locker room after going in the blue tent. According to Adam Schefter, it looks to be a MCL injury. That's usually a few-week injury and not season-ending, luckily for Evan Neal, but obviously further tests tomorrow or today as you're listening to this. And Ben Bredeson also went out with a knee injury. We don't know really. We don't have a prediction, I guess, on the type of injury it could be, but apparently he avoided a major injury, assuming that being a ACL, and hopefully he's not out for the season. But obviously Evan Neal is the very, very important one for the Giants when it comes to that right tackle position. Ben Bredeson, luckily, is backed up by rookie Josh Azudu, who had a decent game coming in as a replacement, but hopefully both of those guys are going to be back on the field soon. And that's pretty much it for the injuries, but some very big injuries there for the Giants. 2 rookies on offense and, a guy who's very important for the interior of the offensive line as a starter and as depth.
All right, Alex. So I think we have most of the offense done here, so we can shift to the defense, starting off with Fabian Moreau. We talk about the man again. I remember talking about how Fabian Moreau has stepped in as this kind of cornerback 2 with Aaron Robinson out, and he's played pretty. I was like, he's played average. Today, he played good, if not great. Fabian Moreau was in there. He led the Giants, or at least tied Julian Love in leading the Giants in tackles with a total of 9. He also had 7 solo tackles that led the team, and then he also had 1 pass deflection, at least stats wise. But that doesn't talk about how much passes he really disrupted, because that's just if you literally hit the ball down. The amount of passes that he got in the faces of wide receivers, or because of his pressure, the wide receivers dropped the ball completely. There were many occurrences of that today. I'd like to give a shout out personally to Fabian Moreau because he played lockdown defense. And seriously, that's a guy that I think is kind of like I wouldn't say a comeback story, but just like a kind of cool story to see.
Yeah.
Kind of slotting in, doing his job. And he's one of the reasons why the Giants are 6-1 right now. I think we should give him more credit than, we have. He's kind of like an underdog kind of guy, because it's just like you don't look to him like, oh yeah, Fabian Moreau is the reason the Giants are 6-1. And I'm not saying he's the main, right? There's Saquon Barkley, there's Daniel Jones, but he is one of the reasons. It's just like those puzzle pieces coming together, along with his coaching staff of obviously having Brian Dable here, having Mike Kafka here, having Wink Martindale here. Yes, they have a job, but everyone has to do their part in order for a team to be successful. So for this team to be successful, be 6-1 with this great winning record, Fabian Moreau has a reason to do with that. And talking about quarterbacks, Adoree Jackson, Alex, getting injured, coming back, immediately making an impact, being that cornerback 1 that we love to see, stopping the Jacksonville Jaguars from winning the game. There was that play in the right corner end zone. Zay Jones, right, I think, went up for it. Christian Kirk went up for it. Thank you.
Wait, which one are you talking about? Sorry.
The one on the final drive. It was in the right corner of the end zone.
Oh, no, that was Zay Jones. You're right. Sorry.
Yeah, so Zay Jones in the back of the end zone, and Adoree Jackson saved the game for the New York Giants. Yeah. So, I mean, that play helped win us the game. Obviously, there were a couple after that. But Adoree Jackson getting injured, coming back, immediately making an impact, getting a couple pass deflections. And also, was he the guy who stopped that 4th down conversion? Or not 4th down, that 3rd down before they punted.
I do not remember now. No.
I think so. There was that 3rd down with 4:40 left.
You might be right.
It was in their own territory, and I think it was a pass, a knockdown, a deflection, or something. I think Adoree Jackson disrupted a pass from getting completed. But whatever. Fabian Moreau, Adoree Jackson. I'll stop talking. But shout outs to them.
Yeah, and Fabian Moreau actually coming into this game was the 6th best press man corner according to Next Gen Stats, for whatever that's worth, alongside guys like Tre'Davious Ward, Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey, etc. So nice company there for Fabian Moreau. And then obviously the Giants defense came up big on that 4th and short QB sneak that the Jaguars did. They were able to really pack the center of that defensive line, stop Trevor Lawrence, and turn the ball over on downs. And that was a big turn for the game there. and really shifted the game in the Giants' favor. And then obviously that huge final drive with the defensive penalties that brought the Jags basically from, the 20, 30-yard line on their side all the way to the red zone. It was crazy. There was there was so many missed holding calls on Kayvon Thibodeau. Those were not called. There was a terrible roughing the passer call, quite bad hands to the face call. The Giants were really up against the refs on that final drive, but they were still able to make that huge stop. Christian Kirk catches the ball at the 1-yard line, and they stuff him inbounds, and the clock runs to 0. And the Giants go 6-1. That's basically how the game ended on that final drive. It was gut-wrenching. It was heart-wrenching. It was nervous, crazy anticipation of, probably losing again. It's like, oh my God, we've seen this in the past few years. Like, this can't happen again. And it was really a Jalen Reagor situation. I'm not sure if you remember that from last season. Maybe it was that he caught the ball in the 1-yard line and the Giants ended up winning because they were able to stop him from getting into the end zone. But big win for the Giants, obviously.
Yeah, Alex, I mean, looking at the defense today, Dory Jackson also in the stat category getting 2 pass deflections, but they had no sacks. This defense had no sacks. This defense had no tackles for loss. Yet they were still able to hold the Jacksonville Jaguars to 17
They gave 450 yards.
They held the Jacksonville Jaguars to 17 points without recording a single stat in those 2 categories, sacks and tackles for loss. That is not. If I told you that the Giants had 0 sacks and 0 tackles for loss, you would think they lost this game. You would think this would be a blowout because that is normally a stat that kind of leads to victories. But I just thought that was interesting to mention there. But again, Wink Martindale's defense still helps the Giants prevail and get the win. So shout out to Wink Martindale. Love the shout outs here on the podcast. Dexter Lawrence, although he doesn't get a sack today, he did pressure Trevor Lawrence quite a bit. The Lawrences really went at it. And obviously, he would have had a sack if they didn't call the rough in the
Yeah.
If they didn't call the rough in the passer. Sorry, I'm getting a little I don't want the other guests to yell at me here. I remember I'm still in the business center. I don't want to yell at. So I was about to get really loud. But but yeah. I really wanted Lawrence to get that sack because I've been waiting to say it on the podcast that he's broken his own season record, and I was like, oh, he's gonna do it. Nope, he didn't.
Yeah.
But Alex, I mean, I think we covered everything. Let's see. Let's go to our players to watch from last week. I said Dexter Lawrence. Oh, but I guess that's another reason. I wasn't even thinking about that, but that unfortunately does not happen. Josh Allen for the Jaguars. I mean, I guess so. Do I get credit for that? I mean, did he? Did he do?
I mean, for me, Wan'Dale Robinson had 50 yards, 6 catches. Evan Ingram had quite a revenge game too, to be honest. He had a couple big first downs for the Jaguars, which is kind of funny. So it was good to beat him after he kind of like made a, snide gesture towards the Giants fans in Jacksonville. So I was happy to see that. I don't, they should have panned to his face after the game, but certainly happy that we got the better of him.
Yeah, Alex. So I would say you went 2 for 2 in the players to watch, and I went 0 for 2 this week. So that's kind of unfortunate.
Okay.
But, it is what it is. And, I mean, I think this was a good episode. We tried our hardest in the conditions that we're in. We appreciate you listening or watching to the podcast. Obviously, hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you are viewing or listening. And go on our social medias on Twitter or TikTok, The Giant Take Pod, on Instagram, Facebook, The Giant Take Podcast, Alex on Twitter at Anoran23. I'm on Twitter at JoshSolo29. And all that info that I just talked about and even more on how you can support us will be down in the description below or the podcast notes. So be sure to check that out. Alex, wrap this one up.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to today's episode of The Giant Take Podcast, and we'll see you all next time previewing Seattle.